And we're live. Hello, I am Eric, back with another entry in Freestyle Philosophy. This is sort of a reboot series where I want to make some episodes where I just freestyle around some recent lessons and different ideas that are on my mind, and get some guests on and freestyle some thoughts on better performance for scootering, for life, and lessons I've learned. Also working as a bit of a video journal combined on podcast format and on YouTube, so that I can post on both. And this is also a way for me to get my thoughts in order at times, because it's hard to just think about everything and then either writing down something or talking about it to a camera or with another person is actually kind of helpful to find some clarity if you're struggling to make sense of some conflicting ideas or thoughts and find a good solution to a problem. However, regardless, I'm Eric, and I'm a scooter rider. If you don't know me, 21 years from Norway. I've been riding scooters for about 10 years. A lot of ups and downs. I'm no expert at it by any means, nor am I an expert at philosophy or self-improvement, but I like to apply, let's call it philosophy, as it actually is, practically, as a means to improve myself, as a framework to enhance my experience, essentially, which is what philosophy is about. Philosophy is really just mindset and different ideas to improve your life. That's what it was used to be, but now it sounds like this abstract academic thing, but it really isn't. And so today, being, I think it's the 26th of February, I want to recap my last week, sort of, or at least the lessons that I've learned, because I was on a training camp for scootering in Denmark, where they have a bit of better ramps and whatnot, coming out of a half week of being very ill with the flu and fever and everything. And so that was a bit of an interesting training camp. It was a bit all over the place, but though I didn't exactly perform as I hoped and expected to, I still learned some valuable lessons and some ideas that I want to work on further and focus on further. I gained some perspective, you could say. And in this regard, I would like to thank and shout out Simon and Fredrik for giving me sort of these ideas by how they ride and their philosophies or their mindsets for scootering, let's say. So the thing is, I feel like we all rush a lot, especially for scooter riding, because it's a sport where we start off kind of young often. I think I started when I was around 10 years old. And so you're at that age, or at 15 years or even 20 years old, you're pretty impatient and you want to rush towards results. I see this in my life like constantly, not just with tricks, but in regards to getting success in an endeavor or at the gym or whatever it may be, there's always this notion of just rushing towards the end, towards the finish line, towards the result. And you clearly see this in scooter riding, and I would imagine probably any other sport, because we want to get a trick, we want to learn and get better, and we want to land specific, flowery, big, creative, hard tricks without really practicing the basics enough. And so I feel like, for me at least, because I can only speak for me, I have rushed in certain styles and certain tricks very much towards a bigger trick without actually having solid foundations. And I suffer the consequences now because I feel like my progression moves really slowly, because as I can do some tricks real well and big tricks too, like they're up here, though other parts of my riding is down here and still very shaky down here, if that makes sense. Because my fundamental techniques, my foundations, the boring stuff that you kind of just rush past as you're coming up as a little kid, they're not solidified. They're still a bit sketch, or even I can't do them properly. One that has been a battle for me actually is just front boards, because as I was a younger rider, I rode more ramps and more fly out and all of that, you know, the typical park kid. That was me at my local, and I never really did rails. Like, I loved to do ledges and curbs and a bit of rails, but it was all backside. It was all backboards and back feebles and stuff like that. And I never started learning front boards. And this past year, I've had to focus a lot on just learning front boards. Like, still, when I go jump onto an in rail from a bank, sometimes I don't even manage to land a normal front board. My foot kind of just goes off because I feel uncomfortable, and sometimes you can see me sliding my back foot behind my deck on the rail because I have shaky foundations, and I don't feel confident doing the front board. That's pretty embarrassing, to be honest, but it's just because I haven't practiced it enough. And so now I see the need for me to take several steps backwards and work on my basics primarily. Now, I'm not going to go too much in detail because this is a kind of personal philosophy, but to touch the surface, because I rushed to get certain tricks and I didn't progress slowly but steadily in a holistic, balanced manner where I kind of could have gone like this. Instead, I went like this because I like to ride everything. I like to be a well-rounded rider, and so instead what has happened is that certain tricks and certain styles of riding has gone like this, while others still are down here, and that doesn't create good foundations. Be it flow, be it transfers, be it certain rail tricks, whatever it might be. Because I can really feel like I can do really good tricks in some styles, yet other styles I feel like a beginner. And that's why I'm making this this bit of dialogue, because though I have made this mistake, maybe you're up and coming and you could take my mistake and avoid doing the same thing, because yes, it feels a lot better and it looks a lot better on Instagram when you like push for a big banger and you get this amazing big combination that you maybe just land once and then have to practice a lot again to get. All for Instagram, all for the dopamine rush of finally getting the trick, and that feeling is amazing, don't get me wrong. But if you mainly focus on that and focus on bangers, as all these kids like to focus on, then that might take away from you actually progressing properly. Because I think if you can hold yourself a bit back and focus more on the foundations and really getting good at the foundations, and you see this in a lot of riders who have like this amazing competence when they ride. You can see it when they flow around, whether it be on big ramps or in the rail section, with just minor techniques, but they flow around so consistently with a lot of speed and height and everything. And then they can just add bigger tricks on top of that because their foundations are so solid. And I think in the long run that's a better way to go about it, because if you can master the basics, then I would imagine that it would be a lot easier to excel when you are attempting to learn bigger techniques. Say you have a flow or like a certain run or line you do in your local, kind of a big line where you do a lot of transfers, some rail gaps, whatever it be. If you can really master this certain run with basic techniques and you're like really good at it and you go there every day and you practice it, just as a very concrete example, then I would imagine it would be much easier to add on top of that and in a lot more effortless manner add several techniques on top of that certain run. Because I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I feel like I have rushed the process, and so now my improvement and progression kind of goes all over the place, a bit up and down, because there's certain techniques that I really push on, like some certain ledge tricks that I'm working on and whatnot, but then in other aspects of riding I feel like a complete beginner, because I absolutely haven't practiced those type of tricks enough, and that's a weird feeling. It's like, okay, so I'm competent over here, but then over here I suck. That's basically how I feel. It's a competition of contrasts and extremes, I guess, something like that. And it doesn't help your self-image that you're so good over here, or at least you're decent over here, but then over here you're really bad. That those two don't align properly. And so coming out of this training camp, I feel like for me, I'm gonna go slower, but I'm gonna really concretize my weaknesses. I'm not gonna go into my exact weaknesses because, as I said, this is more personal, but I wanted to touch the surface so that I'm maybe able to help someone that might be rushing it as a kid or wants to get the big tricks because all their friends are working on bangers and all of this stuff, but yet still are lagging on some foundations. Because if you can solidify your foundations first, then it's gonna be a lot easier to excel. And I can see this so clearly in so many riders, like younger riders than me, that are starting to get a lot more better than me, for example, or friends I've had for a long time who's always had this steady progression because they have worked the basics a lot more than me. And I don't know, you get this feeling when you see certain riders, they're so competent and so skilled when they flow around and they do certain tricks and they make extremely hard tricks look easy. I think that's got a lot to do with their ability to do the basics. And you can see it especially, thanks Frederick for this insight. You can see this in a lot of like French riders, like ledge tech rail riders. When you see them ride in real life, if you have like in competitions and stuff, it's insane because they can do these insanely difficult tricks like it was nothing, and then back it up with another hard trick. And that doesn't come easy, and that doesn't come from just repeating and trying to get bangers all the time. That comes from practice. That comes from practicing the same things over and over and over again until they're extremely implemented, I guess. There's this coach, he's like the most famous and best, he's like basically a master in jiu-jitsu, if you're into that, called John Danaher. He has this idea of, or this, I think it's his philosophy, that the basics are what the masters and the beginners rely upon. And so if you rush past the basics, then I promise you're going to have a difficult time. Maybe not in a year, maybe not in a 2 year period, perhaps in 10 years. It's going to be difficult, I promise you, because as you start progressing in some certain tricks, and you kind of, this is kind of a problem of specializing in certain techniques and tricks too early, like getting some certain bangers really good, but then the general foundation is weak because you've gone like this and you haven't gone like that, if that makes sense. So if you go broad first and like really generalize and familiarize yourself with all of the different techniques and progress like this, then you can kind of, after you have competence in a wide range of abilities, then you can kind of start specializing more, because then it would be easier to specialize and to learn bigger, harder combinations, specialized tricks that you can still put into your riding and not just land once and then never get again. Because I think it's a real issue that kids through Instagram and through friends and everything get the sense that they have to get bangers and they have to push and push and push and push and repeat way outside of their skill level. Like, it's okay to practice and to repeat a lot and fail a lot until you get a big trick. That's important too. But sometimes we start pushing it too far before we're ready, if that makes sense, before we have the skill. Because we want to impress others, because we want that insta clip, because we see everyone else doing it, and so it feels wrong to not to do it ourselves. But if you only do that, then progression is gonna go really slow, because getting a big trick that is way outside your skill level, that is cool in itself, but is it sustainable? Like, if you get that big trick once, finally after 2 hours of trying, kind of accidentally, because you just tried so many times, are you able to replicate it? Can you even do a smaller version of that trick confidently? Because if you can't, then you probably went a little too far. And so it would be better to really solidify the easier versions of that trick and then go practice and repeat and try hard until you get the bigger combination. I'll see if I can give you an example from my experience. This isn't exactly a direct example, but let's say, and I did land this trick back in 2019, I think it was. I was actually in Denmark then too, and I had this trick that I had learned and practiced a lot in Norway and in Denmark for that matter, which is a whip to bar spin to finger whip, you know, like whip, and then you kind of do the bar spin as you go up, and then a finger whip. And I did that quite confidently. I could do it not first try, not second try, I think, but kind of confidently in Norway on different box jumps. Fairly often. I would say I was like pretty good at it. I haven't done it in a while now. Like now I kind of forgot about it after the pandemic, but regardless, it was about time to push that one a bit further, and I was like generally good at it, but I wasn't the best. And I actually managed on the Resi in Terminalens. If you've seen that, it's like the green Resi room in Denmark. I did like a whip bar finger whip. No, sorry, whip bar double finger whip on that Resi box. And you get a lot more height on that box than the ones in Norway, so it would be a natural conclusion to attempt to do the double finger whip and not just the finger whip. Thing is, I think I landed it twice, but I haven't done it since. That's like, whoa, 5 years ago almost? Like 4.5 or something. That's insane. And it took a lot of time to get it. I remember it took a while, and there was some slams there, but I pushed through. I still couldn't do front bars at that point, so I guess that's a good representation of my problem. But I got that trick, and I think I would have gotten it faster if I wasn't as mediocre on the whip bar finger whip. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but just bear with me. And well, I haven't done it since, so I guess that's one of those techniques that you just get once and it's kind of a bit outside of your competence level, and then you just end up not doing it. And that's a testament to practicing the basics, because if you focus more on the basics, then stuff like that will come a lot more easier. Like imagine if I could do the whip bar finger whip every attempt and in lines, like it was a warm-up trick almost, or like regular session trick that I did every time in a line with a bunch of other tricks, and with speed and competence and without sketch. In Norway, on the box jumps we have here, then of course I would have gotten the whip bar double finger a lot easier, maybe even several times. And that's actually kind of a good example to showcase how I feel, because it's as though I have two different identities and they kind of wage war against one another. Because on the one hand, I'm kind of clinging to the past of, oh, so I got this amazing big trick, then all my other skills should be as high as this one, but they aren't. And so there's this other identity of, oh, I have some stuff that I need to work on that I haven't, that's actually pretty easy, that holds me back. And so for me, it's kind of a bit difficult to go around this this conflict of identity, let's say, because I'm kind of attached to the past of doing that and that and that trick, and so to some extent you feel like you should be able to replicate it, or at least be able to do different techniques at the same skill level consistently, but you aren't. And so then it feels extra difficult to go several steps backwards to practice the basics that you haven't repeated enough. So you have a whip bar double finger over here, and then you have a front part over here. That's a very big gap, and it's a bit frustrating because it doesn't feel like you progress at all when you think of it that way. But then again, there are certain tricks that will hold you back if you rush too fast. And so that's I guess today's little philosophy nugget that you could apply to writing, and maybe, just maybe, it'll help you. This is what I'm trying to do right now, because I can see clearly that there's a lot of different techniques that hold me back and make it difficult for me to actually get the tricks that I want to get, and to get to the level that I want to get to. And so it might be better to just forget about all those big tricks I once got and focus on where I'm at now. There's actually this concept in, I think it's Zen Buddhism, or kind of like samurai philosophy. It's an Eastern concept, and it's called Shoshin. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but it basically means beginner's mind. If you have a beginner's mind, you're kind of open to everything. You're objective, and you see and learn things the way they are, and you're not attached to a specific outcome or a specific past or a specific identity. Like right now, when I get this feeling, this conflicting feeling, when I should practice the basics, and then I remember all the big tricks I once landed, that's me being attached to the past, like a past victory, let's say. Though I'm not in the past, I'm now, and so it's better to sort of empty the mind and be a beginner again and actually learn. Because you can't, I think that's a quote, you can't learn that which you already think you know. So if you think you're already at that level, then it's going to be hard to learn something you actually don't know. That's a lot easier, if that makes sense. I think that quote comes from Seneca or something. And I don't know. Here's an interesting quote, actually from Bruce Lee, and I feel like this encapsulates this last idea properly. Holding on prevents growth. Tension. From now to then, people try to hold on to the sameness. This holding on to prevents growth. So basically, if you hold on to a past identity or a past victory, then you're not gonna grow. You're not gonna become better, because you're not in the past. Me getting the whip bar double finger whip isn't now. That's not gonna help me get better at front boards. Oh man. I think that's enough for today, but I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope it was relevant to you. Maybe you could take my mistakes and avoid rushing, because if you rush, you're ultimately going to create weaknesses that are going to hold you back later, whether you think it is or not. Even if you want to be like only like a street or park rider, I feel like having a little bit of general competence in the other styles will only benefit you, because it will make you more of a well-rounded rider, in the sense that the way you ride, whether it be as a street rider or a park rider, will look better and you will be more confident. Like, being able to be confident on a rail will never, it will never do anything bad for you in the park section, on the ramps. Like, even if you're like a very specialized park rider with like the smallest scooter and everything, having some general competence in the street section is just gonna benefit you, because at the end of the day, it's still scooter riding. And so if you can use your scooter to the best of your ability in all styles, then that's of course gonna help the foundations and help you grow more in specific styles, if that makes sense. Now, that's what I got for you today. Just remember to not rush. Don't make the mistake I did. Don't push too far just because you see everyone else doing it. Just because you see everyone else pushing for bangers that are far beyond their skill level. Like, you need to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, of course, but not to like 4 or 5 steps beyond your comfort zone. You kind of have to push a little past your skill level just to learn the next skill, but not skip skills. You can't skip skills, because that's only going to make your riding very, very shaky, and you're going to create all sorts of weaknesses and imbalances. And trust me, you don't want that. Really, really. Because then you're going to have to take a long time in the future to fix them, which is what I have to do now. If you enjoyed this, then please share it around, or like it, put some stars on it on Spotify or Apple, or like it on YouTube, wherever you are watching this. And thank you for watching to the end. This got a little bit longer than I was expecting. I hope you didn't fall off completely. This was, as I said, just a bit of a freestyling, nothing scripted, nothing planned, and so sometimes that just ends up getting a bit too long. But yeah, that's me for today. I'm gonna drink my tea and go work out, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.